The German-born artist Max Ernst was deeply interested in magic and the occult. He first came to these themes through his studies at the University of Bonn and by learning about the medieval folklore of his native Rhineland. And in the composition that we see right behind me, entitled Attirement of the Bride from 1940, Max Ernst also shows that he was deeply inspired by Northern Renaissance imagery. So let's look closer at the work itself. This painting, in fact, belonged to Peggy Guggenheim, and it is one of the key works that inspired the exhibition on Surrealism and Magic. So as we look at the composition in the center, we see that there's a birdman-like green figure that is courting this majestic bride in the center of the canvas. Its bare body is covered with this regal orange-red mantle composed of feather. There's a very high possibility that Max Ernst here is actually relating to his personal life. In 1937, he had met the English-born painter Leonora Carrington, with whom he has spent only 3 years, from 1937 to 1940, but it was a very intense relationship, and they had exchanged many ideas to do with magic, witchcraft, and the occult. And quite often, Carrington would refer to Ernst in her paintings, while Ernst would refer to her in his own works. So it is possible that Max Ernst is actually depicting himself here, courting the bride in the middle, which would be Leonora Carrington, represented as a sort of medieval witch, as an enchantress figure. The fact that Max Ernst would show himself as a bird is also no accident. In fact, in his adolescence, one night when his pet bird died, his sister was born. So he had always associated the bird as a symbol of transformation or metamorphosis. By depicting the act of courting, Max Ernst also places himself in this long lineage of artists that had depicted the ancient ritual of marriage, because courting would eventually lead to marriage. And therefore, the scene that we see in this composition might also be a reference to one of the key symbols in alchemy, which would be that of the royal wedding. The royal wedding between two opposites, often represented through the figures of the king and the queen, and their union then becomes this occasion for their spiritual evolvement together. And the surrealists such as Ernst would often interpret that royal wedding as a metaphor for erotic desire, for spiritual maturation, but at the same time also for rebirth and regeneration that they would have wanted to see at the time of war in the 1940s. And in fact, the floor itself on which we see the couple standing is tilted, and it is reminiscent somewhat of a chessboard. So the chess had also been perceived as an allegory for the alchemical royal wedding by the Surrealists, specifically because it had the figures of the king and the queen. But generally, this canvas is rife with symbolism. Every single corner of it is blossoming with so many details that are really quite extraordinary when seen from up close.